The 911 GT3. It's one of the best cars in the world. That's just a fact. But if there's one criticism that could be levelled at it, it's the looks. A bit too shouty, with that massive swan neck rear wing. But look!
Remember to head over to PistonHeads.com after watching this video to research and buy your next car.
This is the new 911 GT3 Touring. And it's the first time in the UK we've had a right-hand drive car, and we are the first title to get to drive it. I picked this car up yesterday from Porsche UK, and it had less than 1,000 miles on the clock. And the question is this car any different to the regular 911 GT3? Well, in theory, no. But I must say, there's been a lot of talk in the press about the 992 version of GT3 has gone a little bit too far towards the track day car, and it's not really that great a road car because the ride is too firm and it's too flighty through the steering. The fact is, I've driven the 992 at Anglesey, and it is a brilliant car on track. I drove the PDK version there and it was superb. Then I got into the manual car, drove that on the road in December. Admittedly, the road was wet, it was freezing cold, and it was a real handful. I couldn't get any temperature into the tyres, the steering was pulling all over every single camber, and I felt like I was fighting the car all the way. However, this car is as sweet as, it is just beautiful. Completely different in terms of the way the car feels and reacts to the road. Now you might wonder whether that's because there's a fundamental difference between the GT3 Touring and the regular GT3, but the fact is there isn't. This is the same car. It's got the same double wishbone setup at the front, all ball jointed. It's got the same multi-link rear setup with the helper springs. The pedal setup is Porsche know how to do pedals so that when you heel and toe, because the brake pedal is so level with the accelerator pedal, it becomes intuitive. You don't have to think about it. The gearbox is just snappy sweet all the way through every single part of the gate. And as you turn in, that immediacy, the immediacy I was talking about in the steering, fabulous. And you can feel all the sensations. People talk about hydraulic racks, people talk about why McLarens have got the best steering in the world. Have they really? There's nothing wrong with the EPAS system in this car. It is beautiful. The feel you get from the steering of every little bump, every little molecule on the road comes through this steering wheel. You don't need to worry about the fact that there's no longer hydraulic systems. This is all you need. On the track, I'd say the PDK is actually the better option. It's so fast and so immediate. But on the road, you cannot beat the manual car that we got here. Of course, the one difference between the GT3 Touring and the regular GT3 is the aero. A lot of it on the current GT3 is worked from underneath the car, including that massive diffuser at the back. The GT3 Touring is still producing 15 kilograms of downforce at 124 miles an hour, while the regular car is producing 80. Just like the regular GT3, the GT3 Touring comes with the same lightweight carbon fibre reinforced plastic bonnet, lightweight glazing with much thinner glass, and as a result it still weighs 1,418 kilograms. But I think I may have found the key to the GT3 that helps you understand why there's so much variance between the cars. So the cars I was driving before, the car in December was fitted with Michelin Cup 2 tyres, but the other option you can have with your GT3 is to have what this has got, which is Pirelli P0 Corsas. And it's the only logical explanation, other than fundamental differences between the cars, that accounts for the fact that this car, the steering is so much calmer. It doesn't pull all over the cambers in the road, but it still has the same beautiful immediate front end that the 911 GT3 has now become synonymous for. At the same time, the ride isn't so frenetic as the car that I was driving in December. So we're on a really bumpy A road here, and yet the car, all right, it's firm. Of course it is, it's a GT3, but it's not uncomfortably firm. And that's because the Pirelli P0 Corsa does have a softer sidewall compared to the Michelins. And then there's the body control. Now, what I would say is that the 992 GT3 works best when you put the suspension into the firmer of the two damper modes. And the thing is, I say that because it doesn't really make any difference to how comfortable the car is. But what it does do, it just limits the body control that little bit more. And so when you've got these kind of undulating roads, it is beautifully damped. It is so well controlled. One thing I would add is the bucket seats. It's a £3,800 option, but these things are so good. They grip you perfectly, but they're also comfortable on a long drive. And of course, the other thing that stays the same whether you buy the Touring or the standard GT3 is the engine. So it's the same 4-litre flat 6 boxer engine, 510 horsepower at 8,400 RPM, 347 pounds-foot of torque at what seems like a very peaky 6,100 RPM. But the thing is, yes, you can have a turbocharged engine that's got its slam dunk performance all at 1,500 RPM, but who cares? I want to be able to put my foot in 5th gear out of a corner and accelerate smoothly like that, because it lets me enjoy the car. It lets me enjoy the sounds going on behind me, which are obviously superb. And the other reason why this engine is so special is because it can do this. That is just joy. Like seriously, 9,000 RPM. There's a point when you get to 6, 7 where you think, oh, your brain tells you that's normal, that's it, that's the limiter there. And then it just keeps on going. And at that point, it's almost like you can feel the pain of the valves and the valve springs and the camshafts. It's just phenomenal. What a thing. What an absolute beautiful thing. I adore the 911 GT3, and I mean truly adore it. If I won the lottery tomorrow and had the option to buy any £1 million hypercar, I wouldn't. I promise you, I'd buy a GT3. People will tell you it's too firm and too hyperactive for the road, but this car on these tyres just isn't. It honestly is fine. It is a little bit raw, but to me, that's the point. On every drive, no matter what speed you're doing, it's always talking to you, filling your brain with information through the seat, through the steering, through the brake pedal, and, of course, with the noise and vibrations churning from that glorious engine. Isn't that the mark of a great road car? A car that can excite? But would I choose the GT3 or this Touring? Well, I like the fact that the GT3 feels like a byproduct of racing, the consequence of having to build a Porsche GT3 Cup car. And because of that, I'd still buy the GT3. But I'll be happy with either. So if you fancy discreet perfection, then buy a Touring. Thanks for watching this PistonHeads video, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and tell us in the comments below which version of the GT3 you'd have.